This is Michigan's retirement coach, Mike Douglas.
Let's start by talking about Roths. Roths as a whole have been an interesting conversation the past few years. You've mentioned this before in previous radio shows about because of the laws that went into effect with the Secure Act. That's what presented a lot of opportunity for Roth and Roth conversions, et cetera. Is that correct?
It was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2018.
Okay.
That started the big conversation.
Okay, got it.
And then when the Secure Act happened in 2020, it really accelerated the need for it.
Got it. All right. What you can do, though, there are rules around it. And Roth IRAs specifically, those have limits as far as contributions. When you get to age 50 or older, you can only contribute up to $8,600 to a Roth IRA account. Also, if you're a higher earner, if you make too much money, you can't contribute to a Roth IRA at all at certain salary points, depending on if you're single, if you're married, how you file. But all is not lost for you if you've been told you can't contribute to a Roth IRA. Wealth planner Tim Steffen was telling Morningstar that there is still an option called a backdoor Roth. This is Tim Steffen.
If you're not able to contribute because your income's too high and you don't have any IRA dollars to convert, the backdoor is a way to do that. So you put money into the traditional IRA and then wait some period of time, sometimes a day, sometimes longer, depending on what people want to do. And then you convert that to a Roth IRA. So backdoor Roth isn't really a thing. It's really just a traditional contribution followed by a conversion, which anybody can do that. That's a perfectly legitimate strategy.
Seems straightforward, but also as I was listening to it say it, Mike, it seems also like it could get easily messed up. So let's talk about if somebody were to think about a backdoor Roth in some way, shape, or form, what could go wrong?
Yeah, so it is exactly how Tim Steffen describes it. You put money in, and then you immediately can convert it, which is great. And so it really is just a little loophole in the system. However, there are a few mistakes that can be made, and you need to make sure that what you're doing is done appropriately. So I had a client recently, they came in, and as we were walking through the conversation about backdoor Roth conversions, he had set one up earlier in the year. And this was back right towards middle to end of last year. And as he came in, he had done a backdoor Roth conversion. But what he had forgot was that in his old IRA that he was adding to, so again, he had an old IRA from a previous employer. It was a 401k we had rolled over. And then he put money into that IRA, and then he wanted to Roth convert it. However, some of the money in his IRA was what's called a non-deductible contribution, meaning that when you put money in your 401k, you can put pre-tax money or after-tax money. Well, when it rolled over, he didn't separate the two the way that he should have. And when you do a backdoor Roth conversion, you put money in, and if any of the money is after-tax or non-deductible, then they use this thing called the pro rata rule. And I apologize for using the term pro rata on a Sunday morning. I don't mean to cuss at you guys like this. It's church morning. But IRS pro rata rules say that if part of the money is pre-tax and part of the money is after-tax, you have to take a portion of both when you do your conversion. So some people think that it's just, I put money in, convert it. But if you have a mixed bag of types of money, and you may not even realize you have it, but while you were working at your old 401k, maybe you over-contributed or something weird happened with your contributions in a given year, which this happens pretty regularly. If you don't know it, all of a sudden, you're going to get a much more taxable event than you planned on. And if you're saying, I'm going to convert this and nope, they're going to make you use this pro rata rule. And that's what happened with him. He expected to be some tax-free movement. He was going to take this after-tax money that he had in there and roll it over. But he didn't realize that in this old 401k that's now an IRA, the IRS says you can't choose this or that. It has to be a combination of the two based on the percentage inside your account. Fortunately, we caught it before he filed the return and we adjusted the strategy. But it's a great reminder that the details matter in something like this. The headline of use a backdoor Roth conversion sounds great, but then you don't realize that there are these little tiny details that the IRS is hoping you screw up so they can make you stroke a check for it. That's what having a detailed tax strategy is all about. It's not about taking a headline and turning it into action. It's about having someone work with you who understands the rules and the code so you don't get hosed and not know about it till after the fact when you can't fix it anymore. That's what we do when we do these Roth conversion strategies. That's why we work with people locally here to say, here's how it makes sense. If you are wondering if your IRA has any of this mixed bag of money, has this kind of cornucopia stuff together, that it's not all one type, but you don't realize it, we can tell really easily from your statements, from your setup, how you're going. And if you go to do this Roth conversion, what it will look like. Are you going to be subject to the IRS pro rata rule, or are you able to really dictate terms the way you want it? We can help you figure it out by looking through your statements and showing you exactly what you have, educating you so you can make a good decision. If you'd like an analysis done of your accounts, if you're eligible for a backdoor Roth, give us a call, 616-512-2127, or reach out to us at michigansretirementcoach.com. Click on the Start Your Retirement Roadmap button on there, and we will have that conversation. Someone's going to get a time scheduled for you and I to speak on the phone, to hear what you've got, to talk through your situation, and to make sure that you're making good, educated decisions. Because for our client, we were able to go back and fix it because we caught it in time. Now, if he had not come to us, if he had just gone through it, he was going to get dinged for a tax bill that he didn't plan on, and that would stink. So that's why it matters. When you forget about the type of money in your old accounts, or maybe you just never knew about the type of money in your old pre-tax IRAs, you can trigger that IRS pro rata rule, and it can create an unexpected tax bill that you don't want to play. The strategy isn't complicated, but it does have to be coordinated. It needs to be intentional, and you need someone who knows where to look to help you figure it out. I had this guy who just came and do some work at our house. We have this, it's hoses. Like we have these little quick connect hose setups where anywhere through around our garden, you can plug in and the hose will work. But nothing was coming out of one end, and I had no idea how to fix it. So we called this guy from the irrigation company, and he quickly diagnosed that there was a break in the line 50 feet away from where my hose spigot is. And I'm like, how'd you know? He goes, oh, you see that spot on the grass right there? Yeah. See how it's a little greener than the rest of your yard? Yeah. That's because there's a leak in the hose system and it's getting extra water. I'm like, that little 4-foot patch of grass green grass that's slightly more green. And then sure enough, he dug it up. Bang, you can see the break in it. He fixes it. Everything's good to go. I had no clue. I just assumed that maybe my dog went to the bathroom there extra or something. I had no idea. I didn't even notice that it was more green than the rest. But a trained eye could look right at the yard and say, that's where it is. And then he went over, dug it up, exactly fixed. Not a big deal because he's trained on it. He does the irrigation systems every single day, all day long. I'm just some knucklehead who wants to water stuff, and I have no clue where my irrigation system runs or what to look for to see a break. It blew my mind that he could diagnose it so quickly, which explains why the service call was so expensive, because his expertise came in and he picked it right apart, and I had no clue.
That's it.
In the same way, when our client came in, he was like, oh, I'm doing this and this. And just by looking at the statements, we know where to look. And we said, oh my gosh, we got to get this thing fixed before your tax returns get filed because you're set up for this tax thing. He goes, how could you possibly see that? I'm like, well, we see this all the time. We work on it all the time. This is the area I speak. I do not speak fluent irrigation, but what I do speak is taxes and retirement planning and the relationship between them. This is why local independent planning matters, because if you call your big box firm, you call Fidelity, you call Edward Jones, you call whatever else, and you ask for tax advice, they will tell you flat out, we cannot give you tax advice. Why? Because our big box firm says we're not allowed to. And then you're left to figure out backdoor Roth conversions yourself, and there will be no help. When you work with a local independent fiduciary, actual certified financial planner, someone who knows taxes, knows estate planning, knows long-term care, knows all these things, and works to put it all together on one plan, you get this relationship-centered wealth management, this relationship-centered advisory that looks at your entire financial picture, your IRAs, your taxes, your employer plan, your long-term retirement strategy, to make sure that every piece works together and that we're not just missing an obvious piece of green grass. We're not missing an obvious thing that can tell us where the issues are. That's what we do. And we make sure that every piece works together. Listen, a backdoor Roth conversion is an excellent strategy. Like many tax strategies, success isn't just knowing what to do. It's about knowing how to do it correctly and working with someone who does it every day. If you sit down to talk through a plan and the guy across from you has to Google it and look it up, they don't do it every day. And that's okay. They're a stockbroker. Stockbrokers use portfolios that their big box firm tells them to use. And they'll, if you got Edward Jones, you're going to have American funds. If you have Morgan Stanley, you're going to have BlackRock funds. They have these partnerships and relationships that says, if you have a 65-year-old with $2 million, here's how you invest them, regardless of what you and your family want. When you work with local independent advisory, we go through, we do the analysis, we do the taxes, do all these things. Why? Because your life matters, your plan matters. It's not about the firm, it's about the person. And that's who we are, and that's what we're doing. So if you'd like a retirement game plan, a plan that covers all these areas: income planning, taxes, estate planning, long-term care, Medicare, investments, insurance, all of these things taken care of in one spot. A retirement game plan that gets you from where you are now to where you want to go. Give us a call, 616-512-2127, or reach out to us, michigansretirementcoach.com.
We've opened up 5 spots on Mike's calendar just for radio listeners today. Call right now. Let's reserve one of these 5 spots for you to begin this conversation with Mike. If you've got questions about Roths, Roth accounts, Roth conversions, just Roth in general, because there's a lot to know in this space, and you're wondering how it may or may not work for you, your plan, your savings, your future, let's get to work.
And the rules keep changing.
And the
rules keep changing.
What?
All the time.
The laws never change around anything, particularly when it comes to tax advantage accounts.
Mm-hmm. The laws keep changing it, and they favor the government more and more.
They do. The goal line keeps moving, but there are opportunities for you. Mike is here to show you what those opportunities might be. Again, a local independent financial and retirement planning firm with offices in Kentwood. Mike and his team here to help you get some answers to your questions. So reach out to us. The number you're dialing right now is 616-512-2127. You're going to call to set a time on Mike's calendar, and it starts, again, no fee, no obligation, a phone conversation, just you and Mike on the phone. Ask some questions. He'll explain to you some of the processes and how they might be able to help you at Life Plan Financial Design. 616-512-2127. You can also go to our website. It's michigansretirementcoach.com. All right, speaking of ever-changing laws and things always moving around, one of the things that we see moving in the wrong direction is the country's national deficit. And we're all wondering how that's going to come right back to our own front doors because, we all know how things tend to work out.
I wish I could run my house like the government runs there. Like, can I just propose to live at a loss? And then they'll say things like, we balance the budget, but the way you balance it is just choosing to take on more debt.
Right.
And you go, how does that a balanced budget? Like, California did it, New York's done it, the government does it all the time. Like, they say, yeah, we balance the budget. And they say, well, the way they did it is they took out loans for $2 billion.
So,
like, what are we talking about?
right.
How do you take out? All right, well, in that case, yeah, I can balance the budget too. No problem. Just let me take
Almost
out
anybody
unlimited
could.
debt.
Almost anybody could. Looking for solutions, sensible, reasonable solutions. Warren Buffett, this is actually a take from back in the day. This is back in 2011. Warren Buffett threw out an idea on CNBC that was halfway joke, halfway challenge. What he said would fix the deficit and that it's not all that complicated. This is Warren Buffett.
I can end the deficit in 5 minutes. You just pass a law that says that anytime there's a deficit of more than 3% of GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election. Now you've got the incentives in the right place, right? So it's capable of being done. And if you guys can't get it done, we'll get some other guys to get it done.
It seems simple. Leave it to Warren Buffett to bring a simple, logical option to our table. Fast forward to today, Mike, the deficit's not getting smaller. It's projected around $1.9 trillion this year, or roughly 5.8% of the GDP. Persistent deficits, they can pressure lots of things. Decisions on future taxes, Social Security and Medicare, what's going to happen with those entities. Bringing it down to a micro level, how do you help somebody who comes into the office build flexibility into a plan when things like taxes, benefits, inflation are all, as we talked about just going into this question, everything's a moving target?
Yeah. So important thing to understand, one is historically where we are, and two, where that would show us that taxes will go in the future.
Okay.
We don't know what taxes absolutely will be in the future, but if you look at history, and we know that those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, well, we can know history and still be doomed to repeat it. we can see that taxes are historically low right now. I mean, historically. So if you look at where we are today, it's slightly above where the rates were during the Great Depression. So when the government plummeted tax rates to try and get us out of the Great Depression. So we are at very low tax rates. We have not only the highest debt, but also some of the highest annualized proposed budget deficit of all time. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at almost 6% of our GDP as the proposed loss per year, that's a big issue. And so we see that taxes are most likely going to have to go up in the future. Now, President Trump, with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act last year, locked in the rates, but they're only locked in until someone changes them. We're seeing some wild changes of thought across the country right now. Some people who really believe that we need to increase taxation across the board. And I think you can make a case that if we are going to continue to spend like sailors on leave, and we're going to continue to just offer benefit plans to anybody and everybody all the time, then yeah, we will have to increase taxes because the spending is so high. It's at an unsustainable rate. And that's both sides, by the way. Both sides spend money. So everybody says they're going to cut spending. Then they get in and say, oh yeah, except for the stuff I want to work on. Mm-hmm. And you say, holy cow, like, what are we doing here? Why is everything trillions of dollars? Mm-hmm. How come nothing is billions anymore? And then you have the idea of DOGE. We're going to cut spending. Well, then that got railroaded right out of DC by everybody. Mm-hmm. Republicans and Democrats railroaded DOGE right out. Why? Please don't come looking for dust bunnies in my house. That's what they were doing. Yep. So when they do this, spending is just egregious. And then when you see these bills that get passed, again, by both sides, a bill gets passed for Ukraine gifting, right? Yeah. And out of that, you see all of this money going elsewhere. Or the one that was proposed for border protection. This is back like 3 years ago. A border protection bill had like a ton of money, hundreds of millions of dollars going to Ukraine. You say, what does that have to do with the southern border? Mm-hmm. So this is what happens. Both sides, they pack money into things, they spend out of control, and then we are left holding the bag. We are left figuring out, listen, I'm just a retiree in Grand Rapids. I'm just trying to live my life. And I don't know, I feel like I have less control than ever, but I have more information than ever, right? The news cycle is so short that I get hit with headline after headline. Every thought President Trump has ever had, I've seen the headline on. Everything that ever goes on anywhere, I see the headlines. I'm just trying to figure out when I try to budget for this cruise in 2 years, how do I navigate that? I'm just trying to figure out that if we end up redoing this kitchen, how do we pay for it? Yeah. What are the tax consequences going to be? And while Warren Buffett's idea, I loved it, that you hold people accountable for the lack of job they're doing.
Only problem
that would be beautiful.
It would have to be made law, and the lawmakers are never going to make it law.
By the sailors on leave. Yeah. It would be made by the sailors on leave and all of their private interests that are lining their pockets, right? We're not getting into that. That's not this radio program.
Different radio
However, yeah, if you want that, go to our YouTube channel. I'm just kidding. But the reality is we're left holding the bag. And so what I tell people is if we know that taxes are historically low, we know that where we sit today is a very low, very citizen tax-friendly environment for most people. If it's historically low, we should be looking at creating everything as much as possible, moving our money to after tax, off the tax grid, put it in Roth, put it in non-qualified funds, put it in a trust that's protected against Medicaid spend down, put it in places that are off the tax grid. Why? Because I don't know what taxes will be in the future, but I do know what they are today. I know they're historically low. You need a tax strategy. A retirement plan without a tax strategy is just a stock portfolio, and you shouldn't be paying someone for it. You can do that on Google or ChatGPT. If you want a real retirement plan, a financial game plan that makes sure that you're protected against inflation, high interest rates, high taxes in the future, that's a plan that says, let's deal with taxes. Let's make a strategy that says, I'm going to aggressively protect against the future by making intentional decisions today. I can hedge not just against risk, but against the risk of political changes against my tax plan. There are tax strategies that just changed in Michigan, where now you can get money out of your IRA without any state income tax. If you do it right. Right. If you stay under certain thresholds. Yeah. Knowing these rules is how you play to win the game. We want to win this retirement game. We do not want to find out after the fact that we should have done something different. We build retirement game plans for people in Michigan, regardless of the government, regardless of the state, regardless of taxes. Why? Because we want to know that we're going to be okay no matter what. We're a retirement game plan that's built for you and your family. If you'd like to see one put together, have a conversation with me about how you can live the life you've always been planning on and retire with dignity, give us a call, 616 512-2127, or reach out to us at michigansretirementcoach.com.
So something that a lot of us have heard by now is Bruce Willis's current state of health. He was diagnosed, I can't believe it was 3 years ago now, that he was diagnosed with dementia 3 years ago. We all know it's one of the most unkind diseases that a person and a person's family has to manage. So his wife, Emma, has actually been caring for him. And recently, the family came to her because they were worried about her well-being. Anybody who's ever taken care of anybody for any reason knows how taxing the job can be. And they're worried that it's become too much for her to care for Bruce on her own. So he is now actually staying at a memory care facility. But here's the question for you, Mike. Bruce Willis can obviously afford probably the most beautiful, most amenity-filled healthcare memory care facility. Yep. Most of Americans, maybe, whether or not they can, they don't realize how much long-term care costs can become. And if they look at them, they think to themselves, there's no way we can afford this. Meanwhile, the tax that it does to a family, emotionally, mentally, comes also at a very high cost. So how can you help? Where is the balance in this space?
Yeah. So this is one of the most underserved areas of retirement planning, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to say this nicely.
Okay.
But I don't think there's a good way to do it.
Okay.
It's because most advisors are too lazy to deal with it. It's just so easy to say, as long as we have X dollars, you should be okay. And that's super lazy, because the ironic part is, the more money you have, the more opportunity you have to allow your investments to shift the risk to an insurance company or to somebody else. You should be able to set up a trust. You should be able to have an estate plan. You should be able to have something that says, golly, I've got enough money that I can move this money and this risk to somebody else. I'll pay $1 to have someone else kick out $3 towards long-term care, rather than me pay all $3 towards long-term care. Like that's the math of using insurance. I also have a lot of clients. If you have a couple $1 million, you could self-insure your home, right? You don't need homeowners insurance, especially if your mortgage is paid off. Just if you've got $2 million and your house is worth $500,000 and it costs $700,000 to replace it, why wouldn't you just self-insure? Because the day the fire comes, or the day that the hailstorm hits, or the day that these things hit, you say, golly, why didn't I just pay for the insurance? Now, not all long-term care insurance is the same, and there's quite a few types I don't care for. But to completely avoid the conversation, it's lazy, because instead of doing the research and doing the due diligence, instead just to say, as long as we get 6 or 7% in the market, then we should be okay, and you cut the check to the long-term care facility, that's lazy. What we should be doing is saying, what is the best stewardship of the money we have? If I have $2 million and I want to leave some to my kids, and I want to do these things in retirement, and I want to give this much money to church or charity, or be a philanthropist, or do good with my money, why would I allow long-term care to be unchecked boxes in my retirement plan?
Right.
Just because I should be able to pay for it myself. We don't self-insure our homes. Why would we self-insure our long-term care? And we're talking about a couple of two people. If there's two people, the odds are good that between $200,000 to $400,000 will be spent of long-term care between the two of you. Just using statistics. And that number is ever increasing. The cost of it is increasing. The likelihood of care is increasing, especially as we live longer. So why would we leave the box unchecked? My grandparents, my dad's mom and dad. So it's interesting. Our family dynamic's kind of weird. My mom and dad are 3 months apart in age. My dad was born Christmas Day of 53. My mom was born March 12th of 54. But my mom is the oldest of 5 kids, and my dad is the second youngest of 6 kids. So my dad is the second youngest. My mom's. So actually, my dad's parents were almost old enough to be my mom's parents' parents. There was almost 20 years gap between my dad's parents and my mom's parents.
Okay,
right?
got it.
So it's a funny dynamic, but we would go over there, and I had grandparents who were pretty young and vibrant, would come to my t-ball games and do all these things. The other grandparents were pretty old, and they both died by the time I was 25. But my grandpa, they lived in Maryland, and he developed dementia and then full-on Alzheimer's. And we didn't see them a lot because they lived in Maryland. They lived in just outside of Ocean City, Maryland, in Salisbury. And so we would go out there and visit them a couple times a year. And as we drive out there, as my grandpa's dementia and then Alzheimer's progressed, we would have this experience where we would go in and we'd get to their house and we'd go to the front door and he would answer the door and he would introduce himself. He'd say, "Hey, my name is Albion. Nice to meet you guys." And we'd say, "Hey," and my dad would say, "Hey, I'm Blair. I'm your son from Michigan." And he'd go, "Oh, that's great. I have a son from Michigan named Blair." Just like that.
Yeah.
And then we'd sit there and then he'd say, "Well, yep, this is your grandson, Mike, your granddaughter, Katrina, and your grandson, Chris," and like kind of the whole thing. And then we'd sit down and he would be able to recount detailed stories of my dad's childhood. "Oh yeah, my son Blair, him, you know, I remember one day driving home and him and his friend were riding and his friend's riding on the handlebars of his bike. And I yelled out the window at them. And then, all this, like these crazy detailed stories." And my dad said, "Yeah, that's exactly how it happened." And then every hour or two, he would ask us what our names were again. And that's hard. But what was really interesting is he dealt with this for almost 8 years.
Really?
The progression was 8 years long.
Okay.
And my grandma took care of him the entire way. My grandfather was a church planner. He traveled up and down the East Coast planning churches for the Church of God, then eventually for the Assemblies of God. But they didn't have money. They had no money. They had a home that my grandpa built in their final town of Salisbury when he was retiring. He built a home basically from the ground up. They lived there. My grandma jarred and did all the, pickled all of her own food and did all this stuff. And when it came time for care, he stayed home all the way through until he passed away. Never went into a facility. And the toll it took on my grandma was pretty significant.
Sure.
Now, she's a stubborn old Scottish woman, and there's no way she was going to pay for care for something she could do herself. That's the way she treated it. He was able to stay home, but the toll it took on her body, she really fatigued and had a struggle with it. A lot of people deal with this issue. And I'm like, man, again, I was young when my grandfather passed when I was 19. My grandma passed when I was 25. And when that happened, I just remember thinking, gosh, like, why did my grandma have to do so much? Well, they didn't have any other options. They had too much for Medicaid and they didn't have any other types of insurance. So she had to do everything. If they wanted for him to qualify, they were going to have to get rid of kind of whatever they had for the most part. She was able to keep her home and a little bit of stuff, but nobody advised them on what their options were. And so the beautiful side of it is my grandma did take care of him and they spent every day together until he died. The other side of it is that as soon as he died, her health deteriorated quickly because just the fatigue of what she had been doing for 8 years really beat her up. This doesn't have to be your story. And that's the shame of it. It doesn't have to be the story that, well, long-term care is this inevitable cliff that eventually we'll all fall off of. And I hope it doesn't just kill my finances on the way down. It doesn't have to be it. The reality is a detailed plan, whether it's using estate planning strategies like trusts and things like that, or we go the route of insurance, or we go the route of asset segmentation. There are ways of protecting what you saved and still having a plan for long-term care. You can still live the life you want to live. You don't have to give away all your money. You can have everything you need for your retirement life. But yet, don't self-insure your house, your long-term care, or your cars. Have insurance that takes care of it. Again, don't buy some that use it or lose it policy that jacks the premiums up by the time you need it. Have one that uses your investments in a way that's productive. We work with companies over and over again to do what's right for the client. And I think what's doing right for the client is saying, if I can pay $1 to get $3 of tax-free long-term care insurance, that's a good fiduciary obligation. That's good stewardship of what we have. And don't leave yourself just subject to, well, we'll see what happens. That's a bad plan. Hope isn't a strategy. Strategy is strategy. So have something that's set up in your investment plan to take care of long-term care. One day, your family may have to make difficult decisions. The greatest gift you can give them isn't just money. It's a plan that lets them spend less time worrying and more time simply being your family. Don't let long-term care happen to you. Deal with it before it ever shows up. If you'd like to understand your options for long-term care, what are the insurance options? What are the estate planning options? And what makes most sense for my family? Give us a call, 616-512-2127. We will set up a retirement game plan for long-term care strategies. that helps protect you and everything you've built for the last 50, 60 years of your life. 616-512-2127 or reach out to us at michigansretirementcoach.com.
Mike and his team, they're here to help guide you through this process because at the end of the day, the goal is that you're going to retire one time. But Mike and his team, they're retiring every single day or helping folks do that. So they got a wealth of knowledge in their pocket that they're ready to share with you. MichigansRetirementCoach.com is our website where you can go to start the conversation with Mike and his team or click on the links we got posted in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to Michigan's Retirement Coach with Mike Douglas. To learn more, visit MichigansRetirementCoach.com.
Michael Douglas is an investment advisor representative of Stewards Wealth Planning, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Michael Douglas is licensed in your state, please call 517-323-7526. Stewards Wealth Planning, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Michael B. Douglas, NPN number 9650939.